Gold is on fire right now. Let me tell you why. I've got some stats for you. Right now, gold has had its fourth weekly gain, 4 weeks in a row of the price rising. Recently, gold has hit its 6-month highs, highest price of gold in 6 months. Countries around the world are increasing their gold supplies, including China, including Ireland, also including Tanzania. I just saw this yesterday. Tanzania is wanting their central bank to begin buying more gold. And not just that, but remember on December 12th, in that Q&A, Q said, "Gold shall destroy the Fed." Gold shall destroy the Fed. Remember, we got a couple House resolutions right now that are kind of on the back burner that could put us back on a gold standard. Define a paper dollar as a fixed weight of gold. So all of these things being said, the price of gold is rising. Countries around the world are buying it up. We've even got our public intel disseminators in Q telling us that this country's economic system is going to be changing very soon, and gold, precious metals, are going to have a massive hand in that. I think 2019 is going to see quite a year for precious metals, like gold, like silver, like even palladium, and maybe some others. So that being said, I wanted to invite our friend Colin from NOBLEGOLD back onto this channel to give us some insight that he has working with investors, working hand in hand with many people within the precious metal market, in what we can do and what we can expect in 2019 with gold. I mean, I'm definitely going to start investing some of my resources in precious metals. I think you might as well. Check this interview out. Colin, thank you so much for coming on here with me.
Jordan, always a pleasure. Excited to be here.
Good, good. So a couple weeks ago, we last talked, and since then, a couple big things have happened in terms of gold. In Q's drops, now Q being the intelligence dissemination effort linked to the Trump administration, I think we can both agree on that. They said on December 12th, gold shall destroy the Fed. What do you think of that?
Well, it's interesting because we kind of talked about it in our last interview, but there's a lot of belief out there that the Trump administration is going to tie the currency to gold, which would really hamstring the Fed. The Fed is able to raise and lower interest rates. Really, they control the money and how money is handled. And that's, the Fed is just basically owned by all the large banks. So the idea that this administration may be moving into a situation where we'd have our currency tied to gold like we used to gives people, a currency that can't just deflate the way that our money does. It can't just be printed out of thin air. It would make our dollar stronger, and I think it would really hurt the Fed in terms of what their power is over our economy.
Right, because the Fed, they've increased the interest rate 4 times since Trump's presidency, right?
Yeah,
4 times, and then they did it once in 8 years under Obama.
Yep, and they just did it again, and I think most educated people, when they look at what the Fed's doing, they realize that the indicators to raise interest rates are not to raise them at the rate that they're doing right now are unusual. And it does seem to be that the Fed is working in opposition of the economy and in opposition of the president. And the reason that those entities are separate is that they're not – it's not like a Democrat-Republican battle. It shouldn't be a bipartisan battle, but it does seem as though the Fed has
almost been weaponized in a way.
Exactly, and almost has taken offense that Trump, being one of the first presidents to really just talk about the Fed and talk about them raising interest rates, has put them in a position where they're in opposition, and ultimately we're all working towards a better economy, and the stock market has reacted obviously to that, and as interest rates go up, the cost of money goes up, the cost of borrowing, and our country is obviously predicated on cheap debt right now.
Right, and if the gold is going to destroy the Fed, one thing I find interesting, and this hasn't been talked about too much over the last 10 months, back in March 22nd, there was a House resolution, HR 5404. It was introduced in the House. It was referred to the subcommittee. It's just been sitting there. Nothing's happened to it since. But it was a bill that it said was designed to make the price of the dollar as a fixed weight of gold, it said. Right. So could this be something, I mean, they just like have in their back pocket that they're waiting till the appropriate time to bring out and wrangle in the Fed? And I mean, from this like awakened economic perspective, what do you think the investor should do thinking of these things?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, the Fed, you know, you look at, you know, ex-Congressman Ron Paul, who always, you know, he has a book that says End the Fed and talks about how, you know, the Fed is sort of able to wield their influence without any kind of oversight. And, you know, it's scary when you look at our money and our money supply and what the Fed is able to do, and, you know, who they determine to lend money to. So I think what we're seeing right now is a few things. One, I do think the stock market has just it's just inflated. And that was, you know, you're going to have these cycles where the stock market's going to correct every 7 to 10 years. And we're actually, if you look at next year, we're in the 11th year. So we're sort of due for a correction, A. B, I think that you know, money's going to get more expensive, which is obviously going to drive down the prices of real estate, because if it costs more to buy a home and to buy commercial, everything is just going to go up, you know, in terms of costs. That's going to drive down the prices. And then I think you have this kind of force working against the government in a way to try to manipulate things and maybe turn the tide for the presidential election in 2020, which I think that if the economy turns, it would make it more difficult for President Trump to get reelected, which it seems like the Fed would want that. And that's, I think, a little scary in that that's not the intent of these different branches. And so people right now, as I was saying before we jumped on here, we've been, you know, typically this week is a slower week. We've been busier than ever. I think people are very concerned right now about their retirements. They're about, you know, they've seen the Dow from December 3rd to today is down almost 13% as of yesterday, which was a dramatic drop. Christmas Eve, we saw the biggest one-day drop that we've seen in a long time. And this is the worst market for the stock market, they said, since the Great Depression, just in terms of numbers. So we're starting to tap dance in bear market territory in terms of where the markets are going or where the indicators are. And I think that's getting people kind of awakened to what's really happening out there.
Right, and the stock market's definitely volatile. I think a lot of investors are seeing that. But gold is steadily increasing. It just hit a 6-month high. It held it at about $12.79 an ounce. And I saw a survey of investors done that shows a third of them think that gold's going to get over $1,500 an ounce in 2019. So does it sound like gold's a safe bet to you?
I mean, that would still be, you know, 26, 27% lower than where it was at 1,500. So that it's got a lot more room to go. I always look at gold.
That's
the
even better.
Bottom for gold right now should be $2,500 an ounce because it hit $2,500 an ounce. If you take money from the early 1980s and you take inflation when, you know, gold hit $900, you take that number today, it should be $2,500. So I don't even look at gold as being anywhere near where it should be until it hits that number. And silver is the same thing. I mean, silver's starting to move up. It's starting to move. But, you know, if you look at, you know, the early 1980s, the Hunt brothers tried to corner the silver market. The uses for silver from the 1980s to today, there's like 5,000 or 6,000 more uses for silver industrially than there was back then. So obviously the price is going to have to follow suit. And Charles and I talk to silver gold miners, and they don't understand how the prices are where they're at. And they've had to lay people off. You know, the mining companies have reduced mining substantially. So when we go on this run, they won't have enough gold or silver. We will be backed up. We will not be able to get enough. It's a fact.
Right.
And that will,
especially if a gold standard comes into play.
I mean, that would
within the next couple of years.
Yeah, there would it would be the gold rush all over again, and the demand would be outweigh the amount of gold that comes out of the ground. Because for gold, all the mining in the world, there's only an increase of gold on, on the earth that comes out about 1% per year. That's not going to be enough if we go on this run, because most of the gold in the world is held by central banks. It's held by funds. Those people are not selling. Those entities are not selling. So where are they going to get more gold for more people that want it for, investment or jewelry or whatever? So I think that's where we're going, and that's where 2019 is headed for us.
Definitely. And to get on the gold game now, they can call you, they can go to your website. You even have a couple ebooks, right?
Yeah, we have tons of ebooks. And I think, just calling in 877-646-5347, if they call in to get the information and talk to a broker, get some education, and then, getting that information is important. But, learning and educating yourself about what we do is everything that we do here. We always talk about it, Jordan. We're a family business. Everyone here has been trained by Charles and I. They learn the business. Brokers have been here a long time. They're happy here, and they're happy to give out information and educate people about what we do in precious metals.
Good, yeah, because it sounds like 2019 is going to be a hot year for gold and silver too. So
absolutely,
on it.
Yes.
Well, cool, Colin. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jordan.
Have a good year. Appreciate you and your knowledge.
Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.